On this week's show, we've got some tips on how to make your voices heard on eBay's upcoming promoted listing changes, and we've got some features, some items, and in some cases, a site that appear and then completely disappear. What is up, Galaxians? Welcome to another episode of the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. My name is Ryan. Happy Thanksgiving week to everyone. I hope everybody's got plans to see friends and family this week. My intention is to do both. But in the meantime, we've got some things to talk about in the world of reselling. I've got a handy little article from Value Added Resource on how to make your voice heard in the upcoming eBay promoted listings change. So we'll go over that. And we've got a bunch of updates on some technical issues that have plagued various reselling sites over the last week. So let's get right into it.
Use updates.
So first up, hat tip to Liz over at Value Added Resource for putting this together. We have been talking over the last couple of weeks about the upcoming change to eBay's promoted listing campaign. Many, if not most of us, are not impressed, to say the least, with what this program looks like. There are multiple ways that we can go about talking about it and discussing and complaining about it, many of which we've already done, many of which I am absolutely 100% have been doing, posting on social media, making YouTube videos about it, attending an actual eBay meetup, commenting on eBay message boards, and so on. But one of the biggest tools that we have, and I've talked about this previously, my questions about the legality and what the view would be of the FTC into a situation where the behavior of one person is attributed to what could be dozens or potentially even hundreds or thousands of other people, and whether or not that is legal. Liz has prepared this article, which I, of course, will link to in the show notes and the video description down below, on how to report this situation to the FTC to try to get them to take a look at it. So a seller's guide to speaking up, how to report eBay's new ad policies to the FTC, and additionally, State Attorney General. With eBay's new ad attribution rules set to reshape promoted listings on the platform, sellers do not have to stay silent. Here's how you can bring attention to potentially misleading and harmful business practices to proactively advocate for change with effective, impactful reports to consumer protection agencies. Sellers have been, as I just said, taking to eBay community forums and social media to express their outrage over the change, in which eBay, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, seems to openly admit will collect additional fees without offering any significant increase in sales or return on investment. We've talked about that kind of ad nauseum over the last several weeks, so I'm not going to rehash all of that, but as the article points out, sellers should absolutely take these opportunities to engage directly with the company. But historically, eBay has been much more likely to be swayed by public efforts to advocate for change outside of the corporate-controlled walled garden forums and events. I think the primary driver behind that, and you can share your thoughts on this in the comments below, that doesn't really generate any wider public outcry, because the only people that see it are other people like us and eBay. So there's no outside pressure for them to act or react to those comments, because it's all within eBay's walled garden. When you take it out to social media or to YouTube or to podcasts, that does expand it a little bit. But these last couple of things that Liz talks about in this article, taking it directly to the FTC, if you are like me, tend to want to believe that this is dubious legally and certainly ethically, getting the government to take a look at this and start poking around is at least potentially more likely to create some, let's say, incentives for eBay to reconsider. These agencies are tasked with enforcing consumer protection laws, she points out, and monitoring online marketplaces like eBay for practices that might harm sellers or buyers, such as misleading advertising, unfair fees, or policy changes that reduce seller rights. However, their ability to take action depends deeply on reports from individuals to help them spot harmful trends, investigate patterns, understand and assess impact, and then enforce rules. Most sellers, myself included, as I have said numerous times, are not lawyers or accountants or tax experts or many things. We're good at reselling, not necessarily legal matters. So we don't really know what constitutes deceptive, consumer harming, or unfair business practices. From the technical legal standpoint, I think we can all look at this and say this is unfair, but maybe not able to adequately express legally why that is. Most lawyers and FTC commissioners are not experts, on the other hand, on all the nuances of how eBay ads work or how they impact both sellers and consumers. Sellers are experts, however, on how those changes will impact their businesses and therefore can provide essential data and insights into issues that regulators may not otherwise catch. Every report adds up and every voice matters. To file a report with the Federal Trade Commission, there is a link in this article, and I will actually post this link as well directly in the show notes in the video description below, so you don't have to click twice to access it. That link will be in there. Don't be thrown off. She points out that the form in the website mentioning fraud, you can select the option for something else as the reason for your report and then give details about why you believe this new practice should be investigated for potentially misleading or bad practices. You can also contact your state attorney general's office and or consumer protection divisions if you don't know who to contact for your specific state. There is a link, and I will provide this in the show notes and the video description down below on how to find your AG. Some tips that she provides for reporting eBay's practices. Number one, bear in mind that you are protected. The FTC does not share identities of those who file reports, and you can request confidentiality in reports to AG offices as well. Tell them I have an active eBay seller account and request anonymity if you have concerns about retaliation. To be fair, as we've talked about probably a dozen times or more on this show, eBay has, in the past, taken some pretty stern retaliatory actions, even against websites who are just trying to report what's going on eBay. So that's a fair cop that people might be a little concerned about that. 2, stay calm and factual. Regulators notice transparency issues before they notice outrage. Provide as much detailed data as possible about the estimated impact these changes will have on your specific business. We've talked about that. If you're following my friend Liz at Colorado Reworn over on Instagram, she's done several posts and a couple of reels about what the impact of this will be. We've talked about it here quite a bit. You're going to pay more fees for no real increase in results. Estimates based on the data show that most sellers overseas who are already under this policy are paying attribution fees on an additional 20 to 30% or more of their sales, which adds up to anywhere from a 30 to 60% increase in fees paid to not get any additional sales lift. So be aware of that. You don't need to be a lawyer or expert in applicable laws or regulations. The goal of your report is simply to inform and educate these agencies about how eBay advertising works and what impact it has on sellers, and then let them take the ball from there. Finally, support and encourage fellow sellers, which is kind of the point of this video. Encourage other sellers who will be affected by these changes to also file their own reports and share examples to help them get started. So again, that's the point of this. Feel free to share your comments down below. Any thoughts, tips, suggestions? This is an open forum, so let's discuss the ways we can best have an impact on this. Whether it will ultimately result in any change is anybody's guess, but it can't hurt to take a few minutes to go and fill out this form. On the last point, a value-added resource reader kindly sent copies of letters they have written to the FTC and their state AG about the issue. They are linked in this article. I will not link those directly. If you want those, you'll have to go to the article and give Liz some traffic. These letters are provided for educational, informational purposes only, do not constitute legal or financial advice. Sellers should, of course, then personalize these. Just use it like a template to fit your specific business circumstances. And you, of course, are solely responsible for the content of any report you may submit. I'm going to kind of highlight a couple of things in these letters that they talked about that I think would be relevant, that are things that you probably, if you're going to go ahead and file a report, are things that you might want to bring up. Number one, you're an independent online business owner writing to report potentially misleading and unfair or bad business practices related to the eBay promoted listing change. There's a link to an article that Liz did as well, and a link directly to eBay's new attribution policy page, which would be helpful because then the lawyers can actually look at that and say, yeah, this is okay, or, oh, hey, wait a minute. This looks a little suspect, and then they can dig a little further. Then they describe what that process looks like, how eBay will report that attributed sale from a general campaign when a buyer purchases the same item that was featured in an ad that was clicked on by any buyer within those 30 days, and so on. They gave specific examples of how parts of the policy they believe might be misleading. eBay continues to call this program a cost per sale or cost per acquisition offering, despite the fact the new model will no longer fit within that industry standard definition. For example, HubSpot defines cost per acquisition as pricing where brands pay for each successful acquisition generated by their ad campaign, such as sales or form submissions. But with eBay's new model, and this has been my complaint all along, the click on an ad does not have to be made by the actual buyer or acquire a sale for the fee to apply. Again, you have the action of one person who may or may not have made a purchase, now impacting tens, dozens, hundreds of people, particularly those if you have like a multi-quantity listing, downstream, who may not take that same action. So that is a particularly strong argument, I think, for this policy being at least questionable. Anyone writing a similar letter today may want to add any concerns they may have about potential algorithmic manipulation to the report, as well as often cited questions about eBay is planning to protect sellers from competitors maliciously clicking on their links to trigger ad attribution. My personal feeling is if you're a seller who has that kind of time, you're not doing it right. I don't have time to be looking at other people's sponsored ads and then just click on them to cause them to have an attribution issue. You can let me know in the comments if that is really a concern of yours. I get the potential of kind of inadvertent. I'm doing my comp research and I click on your listing and that triggers an event. I completely understand that. This notion that there are sellers out there who will maliciously, purposely go around looking for other people's sponsored ads and clicking them just seems like a step too far to me. Again, let me know in the comments what your feeling is on that, but that seems like a bridge too far for me. They went on to continue multi-quantity listings, as I just mentioned, will be the hardest hits. All it takes is a single click by one person on an ad, and every sale from that listing for the next 30 days would have the ad fee attached. And remember, every subsequent click on that ad resets the clock to a new 30 days. So you could potentially have a different buyer every day, click on your sponsored item and not make a purchase and reset that clock so that every sale you make for the next 30 days and the next 30 days and the next 30 days is attributed to that click. It could get very expensive and it could be never ending. And that just doesn't pass the sniff test. They talk about including your own figures, what your current record is for sales, your current notes on what your attribution percentage is, what that's costing you in fees, and what your estimation is for what the future fees may be. Again, your business is your own business. Your numbers may vary, but again, the average is kind of in that 30 to 60% increase range. Finally, they close with a clear and direct request for specific action, investigating the ad practices, and an offer to provide additional information that may be helpful. To quote, I respectfully request the FTC investigate eBay's new ad fee model for possible unfair and deceptive business practices, as well as whether it aligns with industry standards and principles of transparent digital advertising. Again, going back to that notion of this being a quote unquote cost per acquisition type ad, when it's really not, it doesn't really fall under that category any longer. Prepared to provide eBay supporting documentation, including the policies and announcement about the change. There's already a link included. Seller data showing fee impacts before and after policy implementation. That's one, obviously, that you would not be able to do until the program is in place and you can actually provide that empirical data. Right now, everything is an estimate based on what we've heard from sellers overseas that are already under this rubric. Public comments on eBay forum threads demonstrating widespread seller concern. For their report to the Attorney General's office, they repurposed much of that same letter but made the certain sections more state specific. The one key thing here is that they turn it also into an impact on consumers, which is what really gets the hackles of the state attorney generals up. The new policy creates inflated ad costs for sellers and eliminates the direct link between a paid ad and a resulting sale, unlike common and, again, industry standard ad practices. As ad rates and the number of sales that incur ad fees continue to rise and eat into profit margins, sellers will likely bake some or all of that increased cost into their product prices, raising overall prices for consumer. eBay then collects their normal final value fee percentage as well as the ad rate percentage on that increased product price, giving them an even larger take rate on the total sale than they would have had otherwise, all at the expense of sellers and consumers who are paying higher prices, which are being driven by eBay's ad fee policies. So that is a very strong argument. Again, it shows how it can affect consumers. And that's the thing, like I said, that gets attorney general's notice. So again, this article and some of the links will be shared in the video description and the podcast show notes down below. If you're inclined to take some action and you want your voice to be heard, this is a terrific way to do that. In addition to continuing to apply pressure both in eBay's forums themselves and on other platforms like Instagram and YouTube. So there's that. More eBay. We talked about in the intro things appearing and disappearing. One of the things that disappeared last week, and I did get caught out by this as well, eBay sellers stymied by ended listing disappearance and delays. eBay sellers are reporting ongoing technical issues causing delays and disappearance of ended listings, resulting in critical workflow disruption when refreshing stale listings. In my case, as I've talked about previously, I don't do typically an end and sell similar on my own listings, but one of the things I do as I cross list is if I sell something on a different platform, for instance, Etsy, I obviously go in and end that listing on eBay. Then I use my eBay solds and unsolds on my mobile when I go to my warehouse to pick my items. In this particular case, ended listings were disappearing. So to be fair, I didn't even notice. I had 5 things in my unsold that I knew I had to pick because I had, in theory, sold them somewhere else. I got home, I'm working on my packing, and all of a sudden, when I do my shipping, I have 2 items that I haven't pulled. And I go and I look at my ended listings and they're not there. I go and look at my active listings. Did I forget to delete these? Nope, they're gone. I go to the sites where they were sold and yes, they were in fact sold on Etsy, but because they were disappearing from the ended listings, I had failed to pull them. So I had to make a second trip back to my warehouse to pull those items to get them shipped. So for most people, the impact of this was the end sell similar to try to refresh listings. Let me know if this affected you. I don't know how widespread it was. Again, that particular day, I would have had 7 and I had 2 that were missing. Let us know in the comments down below if you had this issue. When I end listings, they're not showing up in the ended listing tab, said one seller. Most of my listings have several of the same item available. Almost daily, I'll end some and then sell similar, again, to put them back up. I'm very careful not to do this with zero quantity listings, of course, because they're gone for good after that. I only do this with listings that still have items available. Did this with 22 listings. When I went to the ended listings tab, there was nothing there. Several hours later, I checked. 8 of them had reappeared. I've had this happen a couple other times. Is there something I'm doing wrong or is it a glitch? Another seller said, it happened to me yesterday. It's getting close to 24 hours. So far, they have not reappeared. I'm not amused since I don't remember exactly how many or which ones I ended. So again, big problem for people who really diligently do the end and sell similar. Another one said, I ended a bunch of stale listings and they are gone. Not in my ended recently. Has anyone else had this happen? And is there a fix? Mine did show up again a little bit later. I'd already pulled them, I'd already shipped them, and then like I went to look at something else and saw that my unsold tab now had a couple of items in. I went in and sure enough, there they were. So I just deleted them at that point, but not a pleasant experience. If there's currently a delay of 24 hours plus before ended listings are being populated on the page, but the end date and time remains accurate to when the seller actually ended the item, those items may not show up if you had your filter set to the last 24 hours. Again, doesn't matter what your filter really would have been set to. It was a glitch because those things were completely disappearing. Sellers who were experiencing the issue are still not seeing their ended listing on this page 24 hours later should double check and change that filter to a longer time frame to see if that fixes it. Again, in my case, they both reappeared within probably 8 hours. So let us know what your experience with this has been. Some sellers are particularly concerned that eBay may be considering ways to limit the ability to end and sell similar and relist after confusing messages at eBay Open that said it was a myth that practice is helpful to refresh your listings, not to mention recent design testing, which hid an option to sell one like this from the view item page. That was a very short-lived, and again, no indication whether it was a test or a glitch, but a couple of weeks ago, a lot of sellers said when they were doing research, the sell one like this option was missing from other listings. So interesting. Again, let us know if this is something that affected you. Speaking of things that disappeared and now have reappeared, we talked, gosh, it's been a couple of months ago now. eBay announced that they were going to add a cost of goods sold option into your listing flow so that if you wanted to provide eBay with your cost of goods sold so that it could be reflected accurately in your reports, you could do that. It was full of problems and glitches, and they took it down. They are now apparently rolling it back out, but it's kind of a slow roll. It's not coming to everyone right away. I just noticed yesterday when doing some listings that it was in my listing flow again. So some sellers, this article reports, are starting to see the your cost/cost of goods sold feature has been re-enabled in their listing form. It appears to be a phased rollout. Again, not available to all sellers yet. I talked about at the time, I was not particularly gung-ho on providing that information to eBay for a lot of reasons. I won't rehash all of that, but let me know if this is a feature that you would find particularly useful. And if you're willing to give eBay another data point on your business. I for my part was not. Sellers cheered at eBay Open when the new cost of goods sold feature was announced, but a month later they were having to roll it back because of system errors. So that apparently is rolling back out. Let us know in the comments down below. Do you plan to use it, and is it available to you yet? More stuff disappearing. And this one is a really interesting one to me. This one appeared over on e-commerce bites. Etsy sellers say total search invisibility is causing their sales to tank. This has just happened within the last week or so, and it's a strange one. I just completed my best week on Etsy ever by probably a factor of 3. Etsy has been fantastic for me over the last week, yet at the same time, some sellers are reporting that their listings are not appearing in search at all. Glitch, policy enforcement crackdown. Etsy sellers have been reporting since early November that their listings are not showing up in Etsy search results, and as a result, their sales have nosedived. We have talked about previously, Etsy search is not always the best anyway, but now it appears that in some cases it's not working for some sellers at all. On a thread created on November 8th, why are my listings not showing up in the Etsy search engine? A seller wrote the following. I noticed my sales are so low that I'm rarely getting any sales. As I search items on my shop, I noticed they're not even showing up in the Etsy search engine. For example, my listing for artist Bonnie Ann Groover does not show up in the search engine. My listing is the only listing with this artist, so obviously it should show up on the first page. Can someone explain why my items are being ghosted? Another seller pointed out they couldn't find the seller's listing when searching on Etsy, but it did appear on Google, which is interesting because if someone did that, let's just make the argument. Let's say I went to Etsy, and I searched for this particular artist and I saw no results. Etsy was my first choice. Now I'm going to go to Google and just see what else pops up. I go to Google, I search for this artist, boom, there it is. I click the link. You know what's going to happen? You're going to pay, if I buy it, you're going to pay Etsy's 15% offsite ad fee. I don't want to be the tinfoil hat guy, but Etsy actually stands potentially to make a little bit of extra money. If you got a really random one-off thing that someone is genuinely searching for, and I force you to go to Google to try to find it, rather than on Etsy. And again, this is a big stretch. I'm way out in left field here. Etsy stands to make more money. You could, of course, make the argument that the fact that they didn't show it at all for a more casual buyer, that buyer may just throw up their hands and say, "Meh, it doesn't exist," and move on with life and not look. But that in this particular instance is what would have happened had the person made a purchase. An offsite ad fee would have applied, and that's an additional 15%. Another thread posted on November 7th, my shop is suddenly invisible in searches. Sales have tanked. We've had the highest sales we've ever had this week. Our business had grown the past few months consistently. And this week, our sales had been at their highest. Suddenly, about 12 p.m., it was crickets. No sales, no views, no favorites, crickets. Today, we've had a few sales trickle in with coupon codes from abandoned carts or favorites. Our views are almost non-existent. I cannot find our shop itself in searches. None of our listings are coming up anywhere. We're basically invisible. We had listings with popular now labels from Etsy, and literally everything is not showing up. Another seller offered the following advice: don't listen to other sellers. There's definitely a bug right now. We found the fix. Go on vacation mode for 20 minutes. Your shop will return back to normal within an hour, just like ours did. In another thread posted last week on the Etsy technical issues board, multiple shops completely gone from search, need answers. The original poster outlined details of what many sellers are reporting. Cindy Lou, who too, a seller and consultant, described an issue in which a subset of sellers were de-indexed from Etsy search on November 6th and 7th. She confirmed that returning from vacation mode does include re-indexing, which is why that going on vacation mode for 20 minutes would have worked, because that triggers Etsy to re-index your items. So if they had, through a technical glitch of some sort, de-indexed your shop and or your listings, doing this process may have worked. If you're in this situation, there's a tip to at least try if you're still seeing it. Again, for my part, just had my best week ever on Etsy, not having any problems here. Let us know in the comments what your sales have looked like on Etsy, and have you noticed that your items are not showing up in search? An Etsy moderator did respond to concerns on that thread, writing, "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We are investigating the issue and we'll share an update as soon as we have more information. We appreciate your patience while we work to resolve this," which indicates that they are aware that there's some sort of glitch that was causing a problem with listings and or entire shops disappearing. Although the apparent search de-indexing issue impacted a subset of sellers, the comments from sellers describing problems they are having in getting visibility seem to impact many more. So again, let us know in the comments if this is something that has happened to you over on Etsy. Did you or will you try the vacation mode trick? And if you did it work? Last thing, we talked a few months ago about Rick Probstein, a big trading card seller on eBay who took all of his business off of eBay and was going to launch his own site called Snype. It launched last week and then went offline after a failed launch. So before I get into this is a comment that I see a lot on message boards where people get really fired up about eBay. They're like, somebody should open a new site. You should do this. You should create your own, yada, yada, yada. I think people underestimate just how difficult it is. I know we hate paying these fees to eBay, but the service that they provide, even with its flaws, is something that is very, very difficult to replicate, to create on your own. Even somebody with the kind of resources that this guy had, he had sold almost $1 billion worth of stuff on eBay. So he had the financial resources in theory to create a competitor in the space in which he competes, which was trading cards. And on his launch, the site failed to operate properly. Former eBay megaseller Rick Probstein's new marketplace Snype experiences a failure to launch as the first round of auctions were canceled due to technical issues, and the site was taken offline amidst growing security concerns as well. The new marketplace launched earlier this month after he ended his 21-year, $1 billion eBay selling streak, and hobby enthusiasts were initially hopeful that this new site might have a shot at being an eBay competitor. Some users, however, were less than impressed with the initial launch, noting that the use of AI-generated images, there's that AI again, didn't exactly bolster trust in the platform. And as the first round of auctions came to a close earlier last week, now the site experienced massive technical issues. For some users, the main feature of the site that allowed the bidder to put in a Snype, a pre-programmed last-second bid, instead caused all the auctions to just end, no matter how much time was left, while other auctions had bidding features completely disabled. Makes it tough to sell. Affected auctions were canceled and refunded, and the site remains down days later, indicating the extent of the technical issues may be significant. They posted, and to be fair, even in their logo, they have the little beta symbol. So this is a beta site. They are prone to problems. We're experiencing a system-wide technical issue due to high volume that affected all auctions on the platform. To protect the integrity of bidding and ensure a fair experience for every buyer and seller, we're temporarily taking the site offline. All impacted auctions will be canceled and relisted with full visibility once the issue is resolved. Thanks for your patience. We'll be back shortly. Meanwhile, a post over on a site called Elite Forums alleges Snype customer data may be compromised or publicly exposed not due to hacking, rather, but because a developer may have left database endpoints public, causing listing and bidder information to be accessible without even needing login credentials. Ouch. That one's going to be a painful one, I would feel like, to recover from. YouTuber Rattle Pokemon also covered Snype security concerns and technical issues in a recent video, which will be linked in this article, bringing attention to allegations additionally of shill bidding by Probstein as well. At this point, there are serious questions about whether Snype will be able to recover, and some are already asking if he will try to return to eBay if the thing fails to launch. So there you go, my friends. That's your reselling news for the week. Let me know if you're a trading card seller. Have you looked at this site? Did you try to use it? Did you have auctions that completed, or did they all fail? Has anybody actually been able to sell anything and actually get their money from Snype? Let us know. I don't know what their user base was. They obviously indicated that part of the problem was because there were so many people and they just weren't prepared for it. But it seems like maybe there's some, how shall we say, software infrastructure issues happening over there as well. Please let us know what your thoughts are on any of the topics that we covered today. Again, as always, thank you so much for coming out. If you got something from this episode today, please do me a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button and let YouTube's algorithm know that this was a good use of your time and mine. Let me know if you are going to send a complaint to the FTC. I, for my part, absolutely will be. I've been on this bandwagon now for the better part of a year. It's the least I can do is to have my voice be heard. Liz over at Value Added Resource, in the article that's posted, is also asking for people to comment or provide her with additional information. So if you'd like to contact Liz, go to that article. There is a contact link in that article if you'd like to have your voice heard over on Value Added Resource. As always, thank you so much for spending a little bit of your time with me today. I hope everybody has a absolutely terrific Thanksgiving day. And until next time, my friends, it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. You have been listening to the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next time.